Good afternoon from Sydney, and good day to all our participants joining us from around the world. Welcome to the New South Wales Vocational Education and Training and English Language Training Showcase. My name is Toshi Kawaguchi, and I have the pleasure of leading Study New South Wales. Our team is responsible for supporting international education in New South Wales, and for us, that means two things. We want our international students to have the best possible study experience. And two, we want to share with the world what an amazing place Sydney and New South Wales are to study. This video series is about to bring that to life. So join me to find out why New South Wales is the most popular international study destination in Australia and the Asia Pacific. Before we go any further, we invite Ms. Yvonne Weldon, Chairperson of the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council, for a welcome to country.
Cool. Hello sisters and brothers. My name is Yvonne Weldon. I'm a Wiradjuri woman from Cowra here in New South Wales. My ancestors and I have a continued connection to the land and the waters of the Clare, which later became known as the Lachlan, and of the Murrumbidgee rivers. I am the elected Deputy Chairperson of the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council, who are the culture authority under the Aboriginal Land Rights Act for the land I am on. I would like to pay my respects to all elders past and present, to all First Nations, to you, and the many nations of lands that you're on. We're meeting here on Eora Nation country. The boundaries of our traditional owners are embedded into the Earth's natural landscapes. The Eora Nation's boundaries are the Hawkesbury River in the north, the Nepean in the west, and the Georges River in the south. My people, the Aboriginal people, have been a part of this land for more than 65,000 years. We are the oldest living culture of the world. And wherever you travel on this beautiful country of ours, understand you're entering the lands of nations, tribes and clans. This existed before written words and all history, and it continues today. On behalf of the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council, the elders and the members, I welcome everyone to the land of the Gadigal. I acknowledge the Gadigal people, whose spirits and ancestors will always remain with this land, our Mother Earth. Aboriginal people are inclusive of all from across these lands, and we have hundreds of nations from this continent and across the globe. So whether you come here via foot, air or water, we welcome you. We include you. We all are the fabric of this land, woven together with all our rich cultural differences. All of us must work together to building and continuing a cohesive and harmonious multicultural society. We all play an important part of accepting all of our diversity, and we need to do this every day, bringing my people, your people and all our people together. From our ancient and still relevant world to our digital contemporary one, all of us can make a positive change now and into the future. To make that future possible, let us all draw upon my people's spirits as we continue on our journey. May my people's spirits walk with you and guide you and strive forward for us all. Again, on behalf of the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council, welcome to Gadigal land. This always was, always will be, Aboriginal land.
Welcome back. That was incredibly special. Thank you. It is now my pleasure to introduce the Honourable Stuart Ayres, Minister for Enterprise, Investment and Trade, Minister for Tourism and Sport, and Minister for Western Sydney, to say a few words.
Hello, my name's Stuart Ayres. I'm the New South Wales Minister for Enterprise, Investment and Trade. And it does give me great pleasure to welcome everyone to the Dubai World Expo International Education Showcase. There's no doubt for education providers here in Australia over the last 2 years, like many education providers and students right around the world, it's been a challenging couple of years. But it's so important to reinforce the message that New South Wales is back open for business and welcoming international students back into our wonderful city here in Sydney and indeed right across the state of New South Wales. We've established a new international education recovery program that sets out a roadmap that allows international students, education providers and agents to all work together to make sure students can get back on campus and studying in the courses that they know and love. One of the great things about Sydney is we've always been open to international students. We've welcomed you with open arms, and you've been such fantastic contributors to our local economy and the vibrancy that does make up Sydney as a global city. We know education is such an important part of the New South Wales economy and take great pride that 6 of our universities are now ranked in the top 200 universities around the world. We've got fantastic private providers as well as a number of wonderful vocational education and training providers that many students are connected to. So now's the time to come back on shore, to come back to Australia and really re-engage with the international education sector that's been so strong here in Australia. One of the other things that we pride ourselves on is having a safe city, and we've worked really hard over the last 2 years to create the most COVID-safe environment possible. We've seen Australia outperform most nations when it comes to low infection rates and high vaccination rates. So really, Sydney is one of the safest locations anywhere in the world, and as you travel out of Sydney, it just gets safer. So as you're considering your options for where you might study in 2022 and beyond, make sure you put Sydney and Australia right at the top of your list. We'd love to welcome you back.
Study New South Wales is a New South Wales government agency dedicated to supporting our international education sector and enriching the experience of our international students.
Our purpose is to grow and support the sustainability of New South Wales international education sector by fostering collective action and leveraging the state's strengths.
Our vision is for New South Wales to be a leading destination for international students and be respected globally as a world-class source of education, training, research, innovation and employment.
We have 4 strategic objectives: supporting the safe return of international students to New South Wales, promoting and marketing studying in New South Wales, supporting and developing international student experience, and enhancing sector development.
We coordinate a wide range of free initiatives to help international students with living, studying and working in Sydney and in New South Wales.
If you're studying outside of Australia, we have programs to help you connect with the New South Wales community and enhance your employability too.
We also work closely with the Australian Government, New South Wales government agencies, education providers and agents to ensure our impact is felt across the sector and state.
There are lots of ways to stay connected with our team and receive the latest news and opportunities.
Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn and WeChat, and subscribe to our mailing list for updates direct to your inbox.
You can also visit the Study New South Wales website to get informed with our programs, events and access trusted, up-to-date information.
Thank you, Minister Ayres, for your time and your words. As you heard the Minister say and saw in the video, Sydney and New South Wales are an incredible study destination. We are, of course, very proud of our multicultural heritage, of our safety record, and of being one of the most livable places on earth. But as Study New South Wales Director, what I am perhaps most proud of is that New South Wales is home to hundreds of world-class education providers. Our universities helped us set the global standard, with 6 out of our 11 public universities ranked in the world's top 200. We also have incredibly strong vocational education and English language training sectors. In fact, New South Wales hosts more VET and English language training providers than anywhere else in Australia. And these providers are training the next generation of leaders and skilled professionals. We are directly helping to address the critical skills shortages right across the planet. What sets our education providers apart is quality, and that they can leverage the industry and innovation that makes New South Wales such an economic powerhouse. The economy here is larger than Hong Kong, Malaysia, and Singapore. We will reach a $1 trillion economy by the end of the decade. What's more, Sydney and New South Wales attract global leaders and innovators. We provide the national headquarters to the world's most successful businesses, including Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and Atlassian. It is this quality, this leadership, and our linkages to advanced industries and emerging tech ecosystems that appeal to so many international students around the world. They're keen to develop their skills and leave their mark on our world. It's with great pleasure and excitement that I host this event today. So on our agenda I get to introduce you to some of the industry and education leaders helping to shape the skilled professionals of tomorrow. We will unpack as a panel the variety of vocational education and English language study options in New South Wales, the quality of these educational pathways, and the great employability outcomes that they lead to. After the panel session, I also have the chance to give our international students in the vocational education sector a direct voice, to hear firsthand what they love most about learning and applying their trade here in Sydney and New South Wales. It's a great program and I look forward to sharing it with you. So, let's now join our panel of experts so we can pick their brains together and shed further light on New South Wales leadership in the vocational education and English language sectors. So joining me today, the first panelist I have the privilege of introducing is Sophie O'Keefe, Professional Development Manager at English Australia. This national peak body and member association for the English language sector of international education in Australia. Her role is to drive the development of professional standards for English Australian member colleges and the sector more broadly. Thanks for being with us today, Sophie.
Hi, great to be here.
Our second panelist is Sarah Morley, General Manager of the Education Planning and Service Delivery Branch for TAFE New South Wales. This diverse role includes leading the oversight of TAFE New South Wales' largest educational contracts, the life cycle of planning to meet student, community and industry demand, and leading a number of TAFE New South Wales strategic projects. Thanks for being with us today, Sarah.
Thanks, Toshi.
We're also very lucky to be joined by Helen Palmer, Director, Innovation Ecosystems at Investment New South Wales. Helen leads the New South Wales Government's innovation ecosystem, strategy to encourage startups and scale-ups to thrive in Sydney and across the state. Hi, Helen.
Hey, Toshi, pleasure to be here. Hey, everyone.
And last but not least is Eve Olorenshaw, Pro Vice Chancellor and Executive General Manager at iCollege Limited, who is also representing the Independent Tertiary Education Council Australia, a peak body for independent tertiary education providers. Eve has been integrally involved in the New South Wales International Student Arrivals Program, seeing the return of international students to Australia in the latter part of 2021. Eve, thanks for being with us.
Thank you, Toshi.
So, let's join our panelists now for a discussion on why the New South Wales VET and English language training sectors are perfectly positioned to educate students and to address the current and future global skills shortages in critical areas like IT, cyber and hospitality, and of course, to increase English language competency. So, colleagues, I'd like to open the discussion today by asking you to tell me a little bit more about your organisation and how you're supporting the next generation of skilled professionals. So, Sophie, I might draw you in onto this one first.
Yeah, sure. I work for English Australia and we are a peak body and member association for English language colleges. And we represent the interests of English language colleges around Australia through services such as advocacy, research and professional development.
Wonderful. Thanks, Sophie. Sarah, how about you?
So I have the huge privilege of working for TAFE New South Wales. TAFE New South Wales is actually Australia's largest provider of vocational education. We have over 1,000 programs across both the vocational education sector but also across higher education and English language courses. So 130 years of history in TAFE New South Wales and over 130 different campuses across New South Wales with state-of-the-art facilities to train students for the future needs of the economy.
Amazing. Thank you, Sarah.
Pleasure.
Helen, what about you?
So I'm so lucky I get to work at Investment New South Wales, an agency that the New South Wales State Government's established to bring together enterprise, innovation, trade and tourism to support investment and job creation in New South Wales.
Incredible. Thank you, Helen. And Eve, can you tell us a little bit about iCollege Limited?
Yes, certainly, Toshi. iCollege is a private provider listed on the Australian Stock Exchange. We have 11 registered education providers within the group and roughly between 12 and 15,000 students as of this week, which is reflecting a massive surge in recovery as our borders have opened over the last few months, and it's very exciting to see. We cover all the areas of English language and testing through to vocational and higher education as well.
Wonderful. It's great to have both the private public sectors and government, of course, represent on this panel. So thank you for being with us. Can we jump straight into the thick of things? I'd like to ask a little bit about what makes New South Wales vocational education so highly valued. And I might start with you, Sarah, for an opinion.
Sure, look, I think the reason it's so valued is because of the approach we take to having jobs outcomes and that job readiness through our training. So the training that we certainly deliver in TAFE and across providers across New South Wales is very practical and designed specifically for those job outcomes. So we have people working in industry supporting designing the courses and designing those outcomes for the courses. So I think it's that ability that we have and the reputation we have of outcomes for our students that mean that they are job ready.
Wonderful. Eve, can I draw you in for a private provider perspective?
Yeah, look, from a private provider perspective, I think it's really quite an interesting scenario. I mean, if you reflect the history of vocational education and trades in New South Wales, this is where it started. Nowhere else in the Southern Hemisphere delivered formalised training for the trades prior to New South Wales did in the 1800s. And this has grown and grown and grown, incorporating both public and private sector. The benefits of having both is that you're able to challenge each other around quality, delivery and assurance. You're able to provide a range of facilities and resources, but also you're able to develop rapport and relationships both within communities in New South Wales, and obviously New South Wales is an extremely diverse community, and mirror that offshore. So we collaborate together for cultural relationships and obviously educational and training benefits.
Wonderful. No, thanks, Eve. I think that's very true. Sophie, what about you? What do you think makes English language training in New South Wales so highly valued?
Yeah, well, I mean, firstly, I'll say that the English Australia annual market report that was published in 2021 showed that New South Wales maintains the highest market share of English language students of all the states in Australia. So it is a really popular destination. And I think the value for English language students is the diversity of providers and courses on offer. So there is something for everybody. In terms of providers, English language courses are delivered by government and private providers. There are also institutions that are attached to high schools and technical colleges, and also vocational and higher education university providers. And this diversity means that there's also a plethora of English courses to choose from, from general English to business English, academic English, exam preparation courses, and a whole host of English for specific purposes courses as well.
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying about the diversity, and I think that's one of Sydney's greatest strengths. I sort of feel, whether that be from a language training provider perspective or what you're looking for in takeout meals, there's something for everyone, right? In Sydney, we really are a global city.
Absolutely.
Sophie, can I ask, as we come out of the pandemic, I want to ask you a little bit about how you see the sector recovering, and maybe as well draw you in on, with that recovery, what you think the benefits of actually doing your training in New South Wales are.
Yeah. I mean, certainly many New South Wales English language providers are telling us that they've seen strong inquiries, applications and enrolments since the Australian borders opened in December 2021. And indeed, one of the roles of English Australia is to undertake in-depth market research and data in the sector. And our latest survey is showing us that English language providers around the country are predicting about a 16% growth in Q2 of 2020, which is really positive. And I think the expectation for the momentum of recovery this year is very high in our sector.
Absolutely.
Which is good. In terms of the benefits of studying English in New South Wales, apart from that diversity that I mentioned, I think that the fact that English is the global professional language means that if you have a good foundation, quality English language course, this will hold you in good stead for your working career. And certainly New South Wales providers are top-notch, top quality in terms of English language courses. As well as that, many English language students in New South Wales, around 70%, go on to pathway to other courses. So around 30% pathway into the vocational sector and 20% into university degrees.
Okay.
And I think these pathways are a great opportunity for students. And the advantage of studying English before your tertiary course means that you can get to know the environment and the culture early on, and also form those early networks and bonds to the city as well.
No, I think that's very true, Sophie, very true. And it is great to hear that the students are coming back and projected to come back. So maybe let's touch on what they're coming back to. And Helen, I can invite you into the conversation here because you work in the ecosystem, in the innovation sector. I'd be really curious to hear about what you're seeing here and also your perspective on skills and industry demand for skills in the innovation and tech sectors.
Well, Toshi, you know that New South Wales wants smart people to come here to learn and to earn here. So we want you to get skills in either established or emerging technologies like advanced manufacturing, quantum computing, fintech, entrepreneurial skills too. So we want you to come and be an entrepreneur. Maybe you want to start up a business here. It's a great place to start up a business. Or maybe you want to work for one of our tech giants, our unicorns, our homegrown decacorns like Atlassian, Canva, Zipco. So also, you know that Toshi, in New South Wales, our software engineers' salary is double the global average. So it's a great place for smart people to come.
Wow, I'd never heard of that term. What,
Decacorn, 10 times unicorn, 10 billion.
Wow. Okay, great to hear we've got some of those there. And with so much happening in that sector, Helen, can you tell, are there enough people to fill the jobs at the moment? Is there demand?
Our tech sector is crying out for talent. It's a globally competitive market as well. We've seen that increasingly, of course, over the last few years. But we think that Sydney is the best place for you to come. And once you've gained skills from your choice of provider that these folks are offering, come and earn, come and stay here and earn.
No, look, I think you're right. There's certainly a lot of exciting things happening by the sounds of it. I'm interested, Helen touched on the demand and the appetite for skills, right? Not only here in Sydney and New South Wales, but as well across the world. And so I'd like to draw in our vocational education representatives here, and perhaps I might start with Eve to ask you a little bit about how you see the private vet sector here in New South Wales being able to respond and support and satiate that great appetite for skills.
Look, the private sector is well positioned. It's spent the last 2 years learning. It's taken a very assertive approach to the principles of learning. In other words, the world has changed. The market that we operated in prior to 2020 really doesn't exist anymore. So without having taken the opportunity to learn how the market is evolving and responding, what its demands are, and that includes industry, what their needs are, we wouldn't have been in the position that we are today, where we can actually develop and evolve courses, customised courses, contextualised courses for both our domestic and our international markets. And when I say customise, it's almost like, well, if we're going to move away from non-renewable energy sources into renewable energy resources, what is the particular market that a certain skill set that a certain market might actually require? And that might be different to another market's requirements. So customising a course for scenario A, scenario B, scenario C, and being able to actually deliver that with high quality trainers, high quality facilities, the most advanced technology on the planet. So to put it simply, the consequence of our applying the principles of learning that we give our students to ourselves means that we're really well positioned to take on the world, to respond to the demands and position New South Wales as the premier education destination.
Sure. No, thank you for that, Eve. That's incredibly impressive. And I suppose, Sarah, to draw you in onto this one as well, TAFE, such a huge organisation, right? Curious to hear your perspective on how we can help meet that demand.
Absolutely support what Eve said about that. ability to innovate and adjust, and I agree, we've really learnt a lot over the last couple of years about learning and about adjusting and contextualising delivery to meet those industry needs. I can think of a couple of examples. Electric buses is a great one, really something a couple of years ago we wouldn't even thought about, and the demand for training in preparation, for example, the City of Sydney to move to electric buses, not just how to drive them, but how to look after the mechanics, etc. So being constantly at the forefront of what's coming next, and I think we've got that advantage with having 130 campuses across the state, of being able to get that specialised technology to deliver certain types of training. So whether that be in ICT, or if it's in hospitality and tourism and travel, and these areas which are in such high demand, being able to do that in all sorts of different locations in different contexts. It says, you mentioned before about the takeaway economy, the ability to get takeaway. It's also fabulous because our students, our onshore students, can live and work and set up businesses in small towns, in medium-sized towns, and in the beautiful city that we're sitting in today.
That's true, and folks, this is real.
This is
This
real.
is not a fake backdrop. There are really ferries in the background. This is what's here, and you can look forward to when you join us. I'm loving hearing about both the breadth and depth of the sector here and our close ties to industry. Of course, today's series is being filmed in the context of the Dubai World Expo. And we know, for example, that the Middle East also suffers from skills shortages as they look to diversify away from the oil sector. So I'm wondering if we take a bit of a regional lens to the discussion, can I ask you a little bit about how you think the sector might be able to help address skill shortages specifically in the Middle East, and your relationships there. So I wonder, would anyone like to jump in on this one?
I'm happy to. Certainly, when we think in the Middle East, we've developed relationships, not for us just necessarily to deliver training, but to help local business develop their training portfolios. So I guess in more that context of supporting business to then deliver training themselves. The skill shortages in the Middle East are not dissimilar to skill shortages across the world. If we think about, ICT, or if we think about business, or particularly tourism and travel sector, coming also back into a busy time with borders opening up across the world. Health is, obviously another great area. So it's using the expertise and the relationships together to really expand those opportunities to meet the market and to be ahead of that market, and understanding through things like through research about what's coming next and being prepared for that ahead of time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, it's great to hear about the relationships in the region. Can I invite anyone else on this one, or?
Toshi, a couple of comments. I mean, and sorry, you picked up on it. It's about industry. There's no point just going out there to a market and say, we can deliver courses to your population, whether we come to you or you come to us, whichever direction we want to go in. We need to actually talk to industry. We need to understand what their specific demands are so that we can align the training appropriately for that marketplace. So essentially what we're talking about is workforce planning. Workforce development is an outcome of that, and the process to achieve that is the actual training that we deliver. So if we look at a market, we say to ourselves, and we say, Dubai as an example, what do their businesses want? How many people do their businesses want? What age group do they want in their businesses? Do they want school leavers coming in to evolve and emerge, or do they want more mature workers upskilling? So fresh skills, upskills, cross skills. Is it leadership in times of difficulty, as we've all experienced? And then with a deeper understanding of that, then we create the programs appropriate, but also the delivery models and the relationships that are going to achieve the outcomes for that country, for that region.
Yeah. No, that's very true.
If I could add to that, the relationships we do all of this and we make sure that it's contextualised and right for the particular environment, but also it has that quality assurance aspect of, you know, the vocational education framework that Australia has to make sure that we're delivering quality education, not just, you know, what happens to be the best for the moment. So I think that framework really underpins that then contextualisation to make sure that not only do they get exactly what they need for their particular circumstances, but they can be assured that it's underpinned by those quality standards that we have in New South Wales.
Absolutely, and it's that quality that we touched on at the start of the discussion. And I'm hearing a lot in your responses about the capacity to tailor-make courses and delivery to certain contexts, whether it be the Middle East or anywhere else, and the flexibility and resilience of our sector, which is really great to hear, particularly when we need it most, right, during this difficult and challenging period. Can I ask as well, this is an open question to our panellists. You touched on this, Sarah, a little bit on the importance of relationships and linkages in your answer. This is a broad question about relationships, but yeah, how important are they in what we do as a sector here in New South Wales? And yeah, are we doing it well, I suppose is the way of looking at this. So yeah, can maybe, who would like to jump in on that one?
Yeah, well, just a note, I suppose, that the way that government works with industry and our education sector here is really a state asset. It's actually fairly remarkable that you have competitors in a marketplace actually come together and work with government on strategic vision for our whole state. And you know, they still compete, but we do work together incredibly, and I think I haven't seen anywhere else in the world that does it as well as we do. We have a network of universities, 11 universities in the state, work well with all our premier research institutions to enable businesses, people to come on campus as well and get those skills, but also real world experience and build their business innovation. So I think it's a great place to be.
True. No, well, today is an example of that. Look at us all sitting together. Eve, perhaps, yeah, did you have any sense on the relationship side of things?
Yeah, look, relationships are the essence of human nature. Without developing strong, positive relationships based on harmony, empathy, compassion and respect, we're not going to achieve anything. And whether we apply that to education or any other sector, we go back to the basic human principles of kindness and develop a relationship from that point forward. You know, and picking up on Helen's comments about, you know, collaboration amongst competitors, I think the most wonderful example, apart from here today, it was the International Student Arrivals Program run through New South Wales Government and Study New South Wales. The reality is we had 11 universities, we had 5 large private providers sitting around a table strategising together to see how many students we could get back here, what safety requirements we needed when we brought them here. We had private accommodation providers working with us, we had travel agencies working with us and other government departments. And we loved it and we laughed and we enjoyed, and the relationships have continued beyond that day. That can only benefit the students. It can absolutely only benefit the students, and they're the sorts of relationships we must drive forward.
Absolutely.
I think about the example of a New South Wales government initiative with significant resources attached to it to develop the relationship for what we're calling IATs, so Industries of Applied Technology. So we're particularly working closely with the private sector, so Microsoft, Macquarie University and other universities and TAFE New South Wales in a really cutting edge way to bring those relationships that you talked about to life. So yes, there may be an element of competition, but it's such healthy competition, and the collaboration is for the benefit of the students. So and industry, because they're getting, you know, the students are then getting those hands-on real life experiences with that combination of university, higher education, vocational education and being embedded in industry at the same time, which I agree, like I've never seen that across the world in that works so effectively, and I think it's that relationships that do underpin that.
Absolutely.
And I guess I'd add for the English language sector, we're also an extremely collaborative sector internally, but also our partnerships with the vocational and the university sectors are really beneficial for students because I think I mentioned before that a lot of students are studying on pathways.
Yep.
And if they are in a pathway course, then often their English language course is aligned with industry via the relationships that have been formed through the English language college and the tertiary provider. So they do provide that technical and professional language and skills for the workplace as well at an early stage.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Look, I'm loving this because I can see how much the competition is driving innovation and improving improvements in our sector. I love as well, Eve, what you said about the student-centric and human-centric approach that we have to our students. Clearly, it works because we have good relationships across the sector, but that we take our relationship with our students very seriously. And for me, it's been lovely to see, and particularly during the pandemic, how all of our providers right across the sector have stepped up support for international students in Australia. I know that from a New South Wales government perspective as well, we've spent millions and millions of dollars to support the welfare of students during this challenging period. And as I say, I think that goes a long way to showing how much we care for our international students. So I want to salute everyone here for that work. Speaking about New South Wales government support, Helen, I might just bring you in on this, but as someone who's working in that tech and innovation sector, I was just curious because it is such a big draw card, I feel, for international students looking to apply their trade, right? Looking to become entrepreneurs and become the next, and I still don't have this,
Decacorn.
Decacorns.
Yeah.
I'm sure is a great ambition of most, but can you tell me, I mean, we do have a sort of an emerging, bubbling, exciting tech sector scene here. What's the government doing to support that? Yeah, what are you seeing on the ground?
Yeah, it's an exciting development in the last few years that we've really positioned New South Wales to be globally competitive. we want our entrepreneurs to start up businesses here. So where we're filming today is on the beautiful Sydney Harbour, 2 train stops up the road, and you're at a building called the Sydney Startup Hub, which government opened. It's 11 floors dedicated to startups. So that houses about 500 startups now. It's creating thousands of jobs, those businesses, just for startups. And so that's it's just celebrated its 4th birthday. So there's an epicentre, I'd say, for startups in Sydney. And 2 more train stops away is a new precinct called the Tech Central precinct. And that's a home for 3 of our universities, all within close proximity. It's the biggest transport hub in the country. We want people to start up but then scale up as well. We want to nourish our companies to grow and be successful. That's where Atlassian's going to headquarter, Canva's there, Afterpay headquartered there as well. So plenty of space and dedication, and that's just in Sydney's central business district. We're also looking to support businesses in Westmead. A health innovation ecosystem is thriving, and government's spending millions of dollars on that site. And of course, in other places in Sydney, but also right around the state. You can have an amazing entrepreneurial journey in Sydney, but also beautiful regional centres on the beach or inland. Beautiful.
Yeah, no, I'm loving hearing this. To me, it sounds like if you've got the idea, then we've got the ecosystem to help you make that happen, and the government's right behind that. And I know how important our international students are to that tech ecosystem, right? It's when you're in that early stages, in particular, right, of a startup, it's important to have as many skills and as many contacts as possible. And I think obviously our international students with their contacts and connections back home and that knowledge, that brings an incredible resilience they've already demonstrated in coming to a new country to improve their skills. Puts them in a great position to support that. So great to hear about what we're doing there. Well, folks, I think we're actually coming to the end of the session, running a little bit short on time. I wonder, do you have any final thoughts and to share with our audience globally? And perhaps a question from my perspective, another way of looking at this is if you were an international student, why would you choose to study here in New South Wales? So, Sophie, I might jump in with you first if that's all right.
Yeah, absolutely. I think New South Wales has always gone above and beyond in supporting students' welfare, as you mentioned, and their safety and their mental health and their sense of belonging to the community, as well as providing top quality courses. So I think, you know, things like the airport welcome desk that you mentioned, programs, sporting extracurricular activities like the cricket or the soccer programs, as well as other initiatives to support students' safety and their welfare, really, you know, give students a sense of belonging. And I think that's why I'd choose New South Wales. As well as that, when I was an English language teacher, I know that many of my students told me that they found New South Wales, you know, just to be a very vibrant and dynamic city, but for them the lifestyle was really one of their key factors in deciding to come here.
Not surprised. Thanks, Sophie. How about you, Sarah?
I have actually been visiting a couple of our campuses over the last couple of days and got to talk to some students, and I think it's that wraparound support that they feel really comfortable to be here. But in the end, what really, they walk away with job readiness and that ability to walk straight into either they're already in a job, they're already in a startup, they're already, and they can just, you know, expand on those skills straight away and use those skills straight away. But I absolutely, you know, agree that, you know, if I think about some of our regional locations, there's not a student, there's not a spot for. You know, there's a fabulous spot, there's a course, there's the wraparound support, there's you know, great food, great locations to visit. You know, it's really great to talk straight to students and hear from them about why they love it so much.
No, absolutely. Certainly the favourite part of my job as well. Something for everyone. Helen, what about you? What would you say to us?
I just think it's a place of opportunity and we really welcome you. We've missed you and we want you to come and visit, and I think you'll thrive here. Come for a little while or stay for longer. We're here to support you. And, you know, Sydney especially is a very diverse city. We've got over 200 languages we speak here. So culturally we have a lot to offer, as well as our well-known physical beauty environment. So, yeah, we're looking forward to having you here.
Wonderful. No, thanks, Helen. And Eve?
Maybe the question is, why wouldn't you come here? One of the most beautiful places on the planet. But in all seriousness, we have the highest quality of and diversity of education providers you could ever find anywhere. We offer the full suite, from English language right through vocational, right through to higher education, postgraduate study. We have an amazing engagement with our industry, so students can undertake work integrated learning, post-study traineeships, apprenticeships. The exposure is fantastic. Then, of course, I was going to say the weather, but we're a bit gloomy in here today. But we do have a really kind, compassionate, caring environment. And I guess from my perspective, being able to greet the first flight of students returning to Australia on the 6th of December of last year, seeing their faces, the joy, the jubilance, receiving hugs from people who weren't even coming to my institution because they were so glad to be here. It was a moving experience. We care about those kids. I don't know how many other places care as much as we do, but we really do care.
I agree. No, for me, it was a very special moment, I must admit as well, having been there. And I think the point is, as you say, we care. And more importantly, we want to share this with the world, right? We're not being selfish with everything that we have. The messages of quality, diversity, I think really have come through in your answers today, but also about, you know, Eve, to your point, just how much the government and our education providers as a whole are looking to invest in the next generation. So yeah, that kindness, that compassion, but also the opportunities. And there's clearly a lot happening and a lot of support for that. So look, thank you all for making the time today. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to all of you. I know how busy you are, but really I think for our audience as well, a great chance and great insights into what makes New South Wales vocational education and English language training some of the best in the world. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Toshi.
Thanks, Toshi.
We'll now hear from Farhana Dawood, a TAFE New South Wales alumna from Meadowbank campus, to give us an insight into her experience of life as an international vocational education student in New South Wales.
Assalamu alaikum. May peace be upon you. Thank you, Toshi, for the warm introduction, and what a fantastic panel discussion. I'm pleased to be here to share my experiences as an international student from South Africa. One of my greatest accomplishments was when I graduated with a distinction in Bachelor of IT Network Security at TAFE New South Wales. I was also awarded the New South Wales Higher Education Outstanding Student Award. I was able to achieve all this with the help and support of my teachers and with the strong relationships I developed with my classmates. We would meet regularly in the student lounge for lunch and discuss our projects, our lives, and find ways to meet after classes and on weekends. I was very new to the IT industry and had no IT background. I will always remember the very first time in class where my classmates and teachers helped me to work on real Cisco routers and switches. It was very exciting, and it helped me learn and develop real-life skills that I used in the workplace. Over the years, I had the privilege of being offered speaking opportunities. This included speaking at the International Showcase and Training Day event, student panels, local and international orientation events, and the Bachelor of IT student body representative. I also participated in the Australian World Skills Competition, which is open to students in various fields such as automotive, cooking, fashion, beauty, graphic design, and IT, which operate at regional, national, and international levels. My teacher recommended me for the Cisco Women Rock IT program, where I was invited to Cisco offices to participate in technological developments by women across the world. During my studies, I developed various projects, such as a machine learning system to predict cyber attacks and an artificial intelligence device to support students with dyslexia. This was an opportunity for innovation, and these were new ideas that were developed as a team. All of these experiences and support prepared me for a smooth transition into the workplace. My teachers recommended me for an internship after only 6 months of starting the degree in 2018. So how does this work? Industry leaders reach out to our teachers looking for students to join their companies. Many of my classmates have gone on to work for Google, Amazon, Microsoft, and Cisco, but I work at the best company.